Welcome to r/RedditRevenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. Thank you friends for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. The first story. Lazy boss got revenge by laying off employee. Employee got new, better job and exacted petty revenge by unplugging devices and messing with settings. The second story. Homeowner exposes HOA board corruption, initiates recall vote, and successfully replaces the board. The third story. Ex lends $500 to boyfriend for PC parts. Breakup, he owes money. Ex returns key to his mom, discovers he owes her too. She changes locks. He pays back after ranting. And the first story is, lie to me, made your revenge, and then lay me off? I'll make you work a lot more than you should. For context, I work at a college as an IT. My boss is a terribly lazy a-hole who gives no direction, and only reaches us to do something so he doesn't get in trouble. Oh, and he always gives us major tasks so he doesn't have to get up from watching Netflix all day. But just this one time, because he gave no direction, I pretty much ratted him out by accident, saying to a professor, "Sorry that we couldn't help you with this. I was given this task with no proper training on how to use this device." It was in the moment that I wasn't meant to backlash him. It was just the truth. He didn't even tell me he was pretty much peeved, and gave me a lot of work that's not part of our job description, until I pointed it out and he got more peeved. His revenge. I asked him if I can take the rest of my parental leave back in September for the month, so I can spend more time with my son. He didn't answer for nearly 2 weeks, so I asked him again. He said no because that's when the semester starts and it's the busiest. As much as I understood, it was annoying finding this out much later, but I understood. Didn't think of it at the time, so I didn't bother to fight it. Then literally a few days later, my recruiter called me to tell me that my contract was ending on September. Confused, I asked her if she's sure about it because my boss kept telling me what the plans are for that month. She contacted him and confirmed immediately. I really didn't know how to take this, but as soon as I processed this, I was peeved. My little revenge. My old job contacted me for a much better opportunity and pay, so fate was on my side with this. This gave me the option to not give an F anymore about this job. So because I don't even see my boss a lot in the first place, I decided to just not show up to the office for 3 weeks straight. I would have told them if they asked, but not at all that they realized I haven't even been showing up. My petty revenge. After the 3 weeks and turned in my things, that's when I decided I'd make my boss more useful. Because that, I gotten to know the security on campus. They didn't know I reassigned. Since my new job is close to the university, I decided to stop by, walk past the security and completely unplugged a lot of devices, some for display, cameras, microphones, and other types of systems on his zone, so he has to resolve them. I also switched up the settings before unplugging them, so that when he does think he resolved it, he has to spend another 20 minutes or so readjusting the settings. I did this once a week for about a month straight. I made sure to make it really complicated by taking out the cables completely and throwing them away. I also made sure that the coworkers I do get along there were in work meetings they can't leave, so they didn't have to resolve those issues. Wish I can see my boss lose his SH, because it would have been the most he's ever done for this job. Edit. I didn't do anything to hack the systems or things that can cause high security. The most I did was unplug camera and buy amp systems. The second story is, saw a post about HOA revenge and had to post this story. Pointers included for those in similar situations. I bought my home in 2001 in a 42-home community. We bought right after 9/11, and we picked the community because the HOA fees were very low at just $51. It wasn't long after we bought the last home in the community. We got a sweet deal because of this, and business had really slowed right after 9/11. Before those dues started going up. I was 22 at the time. Looking into the financial reports and into the meetings, it became clear why the dues were going up. The board was a little fiefdom set up by the developers of the homes. Our management company was a subsidiary corporation of the home builder, and the board members were a combination of one of the home developers and 2 of the very first home purchasers in the community, a 3-person board. The first action the board took with that increase in funds was to remove trees that were not even on the HOA's property. They were trees that sat in an area the HOA had access to for weed abatement. These trees' real crime was not that they were weeds. It was that they blocked the nice view of the board's president and vice president. At the same time, the BS violation letters started going out to about half the homes. You aren't mowing enough. You aren't watering enough. Every petty thing you can think of, they were issuing warning letters and starting to fine homeowners. Cue revenge time after getting one of those letters myself about weed abatement. Ironically, it was researching the company's CC&Rs about weed abatement that led me to realize the trees that were cut were not on HOA property. And it was researching the annual budget that led to me finding out the huge weed abatement expense that was actually the community's funds being spent to remove trees, solely for the 2 board member homeowners' views. I then found out that in California, All anyone needs to initiate a recall of the entire board and install a new one if successful was the signatures of 5% of homeowners delivered to the current board. That's a total of 3 houses in a 42-home community, haha. The board was issued a recall notice not 48 hours after I had found out about the law, delivered to the management company in person. Ironically, the home builder's corporate office was in the exact same building as the management company. You'd think they would have wanted to not make their association so obvious. But hey, it was 2002, huh? This is also when I found out that management company basically had the entire board in its pocket, because they dragged their feet with the recall vote. They set it as far out as they could by law, in the middle of the day. Instead of holding it in the community like all board meetings, they set the place at a local park a couple miles away. They thought they were so brilliant doing this. So me and my wife put together a proxy voting form for the election, and we went to every door in our community. We told them what was happening with their money, their plans to create an architecture committee that would require all homeowners to get approvals for any additions or changes. Everything. It took us 3 rounds around the neighborhood, plus a couple extra visits to homes that had not answered initially. In the end, me and my wife had 26 revocable proxies for the election. For those unfamiliar with proxies, it basically gave me and my wife the power to cast that homeowner's vote for them, if and only if they didn't show up to the election. The thoughtless board and management company actually made it easier for us to collect the proxies, because a lot of homeowners flat out could not make the time and place of the meeting. The recall day finally arrives. The current board members are all there, the management company representative is there, and 8 other homeowners showed up to the meeting, 6 of whom we had proxies for, and which were revoked by their attendance. They opened the meeting and started saying something about, "Oh, looks like a waste of money, there isn't a quorum, blah blah." I then said, "I'm sorry, but we do have a quorum." They're like, no, you need 22 homeowners here and there's only 12. The 3 board members, me and wifey, and the 8 others that showed up. And that's when I pulled out the trump card. I dropped all 26 proxies on the bench table everyone was sitting at and said I'm sorry, but there are more than 30 homeowners present, and pointed out the math. After subtracting the 6 homeowners that had showed up, we had 20 additional proxy votes that counted for both quorum and voting purposes. They all got wide-eyed, most especially the management company representative. He came over and looked at the forms very closely and compared it against a list of the homeowners. Even the people that were there and on our side did not realize how much work we had done to ensure the BS ended there and now. The recall meeting was opened. The board members voted not to recall, plus their 3 friends that were on their side. The other homeowners present voted to recall and the vote stood at 6-6 tied. I then stood and declared that we were voting our 20 valid proxy votes to recall the entire board. Recall passed, 26 votes to 6. Next vote, who replaces the board members? It ended up becoming me and wifey and another homeowner that had voted for recall and was willing to take the seat. We elected ourselves to the board seats by a vote of 26-6. It was at this point that the management company then stated that Canon Management was immediately resigning as the management company for the community. I then pulled out the HOA's management contract, which clearly stated that either side needed to give 3 months' notice to effect resignation, and stated that we, the new board, accepted their resignation and set an end date for their services 3 months later, haha. The management guy was nuclear peeved off. I, a 22-year-old kid at the time, had beaten them at their game, and I had prepared for their possible quitting shenanigan. We replaced the management company after a couple months, having had proper time to find and vet an independent company, at about half the cost no less. Did the same with the gardening services, which was also a home builder affiliated company, also at about half the cost. The old president of the HOA put his home up for sale about a month later, after we rescinded all the old violations and issued a notice to the old board members that we intended to vote on whether they had committed fraud against the association over their weed abatement tree removal action. I still vividly remember walking over to Dale's house, the old president, the day he was moving and giving him a big wave goodbye as he was getting into the car to follow his moving truck. He gave me the finger as he drove out. Definitely one of my proudest moments in life. The last story is, an ex owed me money, and I got it back somewhat unconventionally. A bit of background, this guy and I, I'll call him C, went to high school together. We both had little crushes on each other, but were too socially awkward to say anything. Almost a year after HS, we run into each other, become friends as we find out we have similar interests. After 4 months or so, this turns to dating. So before we start dating, he and I have started building PCs together. At this point, I'm working 65 plus hours PW, getting up to 80 to 85 PW during November, December, and January, so I'm making way more than enough money, but don't have too much time to use it. So when he asks to borrow some money for PC parts, I'm not worried. $500 sure. Pay me back as soon as you can, please. Fast forward a month or so and he paid me $50, but isn't working much and can't get a better job for various legit reasons. That's okay, pay me when you can. We've just started dating, but I'm clear that I'll still need that money back. He's fine with that. About 2 months into us dating, we don't see each other much. I'm in my busy period, and he's had to move back home, 20 kilometers from where I live. But when both he and his mother have to go out of town for a week, I volunteer to look after their dogs. He says he'll give me $50 fuel money, so I add it to the tab. He gives me a house key and forgets to get it back when they get back home. Eventually, we break up. An okay few months, but nothing special. Really, we get along fine, but he's fairly high maintenance and wants to see me every night. But with him living 20 kilometers out of town without a driver's license, and my schedule, me driving 80 kilometers just for us to see a movie together just isn't feasible. Occasionally, he does manage to beg use of a car from his mother, but he's not a great driver. He's lost control on a gravel road and slid into a bank and reversed into the work vehicle belonging to a neighbor of mine, then left, both leaving marks on the car and work truck. She doesn't know. He found himself a new girlfriend about a week after we split, moving in with her after about 3. Apparently, they're quite happy. Anyways, I message him occasionally, as I know he has a job and neither of them pay rent or food through a mutual friend. Same general response, along the lines of, trying but no spare money ATM. Well, I'm not afraid to play dirty. 3 months after C moved in with his new girlfriend, I've just bought an awesome little car, and the road to his mother's village is perfect for testing cornering. For some reason, I still have his key on my ring. Might as well see if his mom is at home to give it back, and as luck would have it, she is. She's always liked me, so we get to catching up. Turns out she hasn't seen C since he moved out, but he still has a key and stores a lot of things in the house, visiting when she isn't there to swap stuff around. I return her key. She didn't even realize I still had it. While I'm there, she asks about the damage to her car, and I'm not lying for his stupid A, so I tell her the truth, and that he still owes me $500 for parts, and at this point it's been almost a year. He owes her money too, but she mostly just wants the car fixed. So she changes the locks. A few days later, she gets a visit while she's home, him demanding access to his stuff and asking why she locked him out. She tells him and he isn't happy with either of us. This is about a month after my visit, and I have no idea she's done anything. I only find out thanks to a phone call from the mutual friend, telling me C called him to rant about his mother, and I teaming up on him. But the friend kept laughing throughout because he knew how long it had been. Then a few days later, $500 appears in my account. His mother and I still get along very well. I work at a chocolate shop now, so I took her some as a thank you. Her car is looking better than it did before the accidents, and I have a beautiful girlfriend who he can't hold a candle to. Moral of the story, make the right friends and everything will work out in the end. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to know when the new video comes out, and hit the like button to support the channel.